All right, we'll go ahead and get started. You ready, Jeff?
Sure.
Oh,
Yep.
good. Well, thanks everyone for joining in on GICTV, our first edition. With everything that's been going on over the last 6-8 weeks, we're all being challenged, some more than others. It's just given an opportunity for me to sort of sit back, and a lot of the client work has dropped off for the near future. So to look at some of the opportunities and some of the back burner ideas that I've had going for a while. It's not always easy putting yourself in front of a camera and such, and have to listen back. But with GIC now in its 12th year, 13th year, starting in 2008, it's just always was developed to be a news and information resource for the industry, just a place to share ideas, share what's going on throughout our whole industry, not just in Australia, but through the whole region. Very fortunate to have made a lot of friends, a lot of good colleagues over the year. And Jeff and I met, 2006. I think you helped me get a job over at Pelican, and it was at a GMA meeting, GMA conference. But it's a small industry, and we are becoming more united, even more so now with everything that we're dealing with. So over the coming weeks, we'll be bringing in a few different topics. I'd love to get your feedback from what you'd like to hear about, and I'll scour my networks and see who we can bring on to do some little conversations that may be able to help you at your own facility. The hoodie's the new look, Jeff. You see that one going through. I'd like to thank Daniel Bada from Golf Business Australia. He's been a good supporter, and we've worked together quite well over the last 18 months. So I'm hoping should have a little space up here for your logo here to underwrite this in the future. But hopefully, you get some good content and some good dialogue. A good dialogue going forward. The sharing of knowledge is how we'll get stronger as an industry, and working together. And we see that happening through one GMA and with one GA and all the sort of the efficiencies of our national bodies. So it's on its way, but it does tend to go at a little bit of a slow pace at times, but that's understandable. And with today, with the formatting, I'll hand it over to Jeff in just a minute. If you've had a chance to read his reports that came out last week, which was great, that he's just to give us an insight of where things are and what some of the impacts may be. He'll share that information in a second, but it's a good opportunity to get you all to just write in some of the questions through the Q&A, if you would. I see one's come already, but I'll let Jeff do 10 or 15 minutes or so just to give it an update. Please keep sending questions through. I'll try to feed them to him as we get to different breaks within the report, different topical areas. And then of course, at the end, we can do a full roundup of anything that might be coming out of it. It's difficult to do with bigger groups, having everybody talking and trying to manage it live. So we'll take that on. It is being recorded. I'll use it for future content and newsletters and all that. If you're sending a question through, if you feel more comfortable just sending it as anonymous, that's fine. Just make sure we do put we can get these questions out in the open and get some feedback from all of you that are at the coalface, as Jeff the terminology Jeff likes to use quite a bit. But with that said, Jeff, you ready? You can go ahead and take the screen over, and
let's see if we can get this to work.
If it works, as in all our practice sessions that we've been going through today. There's always something that goes wrong.
So this one here. Share the screen. And now you should all have it, I hope. Is that right, Mike? That's all about
Yeah,
right,
well, I'm seeing it, so hopefully everybody's there. If not, let us just drop a line in there.
I'm sure everyone else will quickly tell us. And I think we should have said initially that you can answer, or you can ask a question anonymously, but if you're going to ask a question, it's a personal one about haircuts, then you got to identify who you are, so we can have a proper discussion.
It should have been more about where's my beard. I shaved for the special occasion for the ones that have seen me online. So
look, thanks, Mike. GICTV, congrats on the launch. Let's hope it's a good one, and also thanks to Daniel from GBA as well. I know I do my insurance through GBA, so I like to help those who help the industry. So thanks, Daniel, for your support for today. I think this is the first of its kind, and maybe, Mike, we can say this is the biggest maybe golf industry webinar in Australia's history, perhaps. Might quickly be beaten, but nice to be first, perhaps, and hopefully we educate people throughout the journey of your webinars and the future webinars, and also the listeners get a lot out of today. There's a bit to cover, but keeping it semi-informal, hence the hoodie. I don't know if any of you watch the show Billions on Stan, but it's all he ever wears. So I thought I'd crack the hoodie today, and Queenstown behind me is one of my favourite destinations. So I thought I'd pretend I was in Queenstown as well, opposed to sitting in my place in Sandringham in Melbourne. It was good to get back to golf in Victoria yesterday, although it was raining, so it would have tested everyone's patience for sure to be playing social golf in the rain. But there's a bit of normality, or a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, although the tunnel's probably still quite a long ways to go. The purpose behind this research was, I guess it crystallises everything I've always tried to do, is to just put information on the table to help everybody make better decisions. I'm far from a prophet, I'm far from the smartest guy in the industry, but what I try and do is collect as much information as I can and try and put it all together and help us all map out a path forward. There is a hell of a lot of industry knowledge held by individuals, but if I can collectively put that all together, make sense of it, I think we're all better off for it. Particularly at the moment, given this is first time for probably everyone on this call. None of us have been through a world war, which I think would probably be the next nearest example of complete disruption to society as we know it, let alone the things we like to enjoy in our leisure time. So this is a bit of a crystal ball. It's everyone's crystal ball collectively put together. Hopefully over the next couple of months we'll test that and get it, as we all get a bit more certainty. But as we're all sick of hearing, we're all in this together. It's actually true. And it's actually true from an industry perspective as well. So I think we are well positioned to help each other, and the more we can share information, and particularly inform our boards. I know for many of you, some of you might be board members, many of you deal with board members. You want to have a robust, informed discussion in a boardroom. It's not a place for strong-willed opinion which has no resource or no fact to it. So if this helps put a bit of fact in the boardroom table, you might not win the battle, but at least you've come prepared with a bit of information that will help the discussion, or give you a reference point for your own thinking and your own decision that you might be contemplating making. So today, briefly going to look at our current world, what our world looks like. It'll be no surprise to many of you because we've all been living and breathing it for the last 6 to 8 weeks. And we'll go through the study findings. We want to encourage questions along the way, because the topics, although they're all linked, they're all kind of separate. They can deserve some separate questions, and we can all have a bit of a discussion about it. The more questions, the better. Mike's going to moderate the questions, and if a couple of them are the same, we'll kind of merge them all together. But if we can tackle each one as we go, and then round it off at the end with what we might do about it towards the back end of the presentation. Our reality, as I said, unlike anything probably than a world war, high levels of general uncertainty, unemployment numbers which are unknown to all of us. JobKeeper, I'm on JobKeeper, Mike's probably on JobKeeper. It's something that you'd never think would ever happened in your life. I was speaking to an industry colleague today who's in the wider research space, and we were talking about the cautiousness concerning future discretionary spending, because if we're uncertain, we're not going to unlock our wallet in the near term. We don't know what the future looks like, so probably irrational or irresponsible to be spending money now on things we aren't completely sure of the future. And businesses, I guess, are slowly getting a bit of clarity around the length of the journey back. I guess the length of the journey goes towards certainty. I think we're learning it. Whilst we want it to be quick, it's probably not going to be quick. You know, I know here in Victoria, we're on probably month-to-month assessments by the Premier with regard to, you know, increasing relaxation. But I think just because people are allowed out doesn't necessarily mean they'll unlock the wallet and go crazy in a consistent way. And also a piece of research linked to ACA research concerning, you know, I guess their confidence in lockdown. And what I found interesting in that research was, you know, lockdowns should last for a longer period, particularly for those who are in the hospitality space. So I guess they're really concerned about, you know, I guess a second wave or, you know, a spike in cases. Although that said, as we do go through further relaxation, if numbers don't spike, then I think confidence will probably grow pretty quickly. But that's all, I guess, as we all know, it's kind of wait and see. We won't know until we've actually started to experience it. We had a really good response to the survey. I made it I made it anonymous because you know, I didn't want anybody to feel like it was you know, about them as an individual outcome. But you know, the collective response rate was great, and importantly, the response rate reflected, you know, almost 2/3 or more than half of the national club membership count. So, you know, it's the bigger clubs which are the economic engine of the golf space in this country. So, to those of you on the call today, I certainly thank you for your support and thank you for sharing with us your views of the future and some of your outcomes. A nice spread of club size as well. Quite well represented across, you know, small, medium, and big. So, so you know, we're pretty comfortable in that the outcomes do reflect, you know, the wider realities that that we're all now starting to face. In setting the questions, though, I had a good conversation with Anthony Masters down at Bar and Heads, who I tested a few ideas on, and he said, Jeff, well, what are your assumptions going to be? Because it's all very fluid right now, and you know, a lot could change. So thankfully we set some assumptions which now appear to be played out correctly. Golf is now being played around the country. So we did hit the mid-May mark thanks to the Victorian Minister early this week. I suspect as the relaxations around social distancing start to decrease and the group numbers increase, we'll see clubhouses reopening to a point. And look, we don't really know about any second wave of infections probably until we've been through winter, but let's hope by 2021, we might be back to something near normal. That might mean I can turn 50 again, perhaps, and start the 50th year again afresh with a better year ahead. I guess top of everybody's mind, and as I was developing the survey, canvassing a few general managers and asking them what was hot for them at the moment was, for many, what do we do around subscription fees? Half the industry renews fees between April through to 30 June. So for many, this pandemic probably couldn't have hit at a worse time. The other 50% are probably either lucky because they'd already pushed their fees out maybe by the end of December last year. And those who are then renewing in September, October coming this year, they probably feel like now they've got a bit of space to sit back and watch and get a feel for where the industry is at and I guess make a more informed decision. Those who are stuck right now, I know a number of the respondents made comments about, oh man, we just sent our fee invoices out the week before last, or we're about to do it, you know, today or tomorrow. Emergency board meetings, what do we do? A lot of panic, a lot of emotion. So it was interesting, the finding, you know, half clubs, no change at all, which I was probably personally a little bit surprised about, given we know and you all know the value of subscriptions to your P&L. Not much change by club size, and not much difference across the states as well. Yeah, really what the conclusion there is, and what my conclusion or my takeaway is there is, it's all come down to timing. I know, some clubs which run overdrafts through March through June, they're in need of cash from an overdraft perspective. What can you risk? What can you afford? What do you need? So all of those considerations have gone into what that decision was. And I guess now you live with that outcome, and then you've got some certainty around what that number is on a membership number assumption, and then you work within your means for the following 12 months.
Is there anybody out there anybody out looking to make substantial increases? I've heard of a couple that may be doing, the way above CPI type of dues increases. I'm not sure of the timing of it. I'm not sure if you heard much.
Well, look, those clubs in the $6 million bracket plus, which granted is probably only 20 or 30 around the country. A third of them were proposing 3 to 5%, and because the survey was anonymous and I didn't ask timing, that 3 to 5% may be proposed for September, October, which then might be more, I guess, agreeable, or the market might be more agreeable to that than perhaps now. But certainly there's, there are a smattering of clubs throughout the whole profile that are certainly still looking to push fees ahead. My advice to them was just make sure you got a good story behind it. Why you're doing it, what you're going to spend it on, how the member will benefit. I read a newsletter communication to members this morning from a club in Queensland, and that note mentioned that what the club was doing with the fees, what their plans were, how it was going to impact capital. They clearly communicated they just weren't increasing them for the hell of it. There was a plan behind it, and the members will see the benefit of it. With regard to subscription fees, there's obviously the consideration. Well, is there anything else we can do? And I guess this is the value add piece. If you're not going to increase fees, or you are going to increase fees, can we sweeten the deal? Can we make it a bit more, or can we offer some austerity measures to our membership? And what I was pleased to find was, regardless of the direction of the fee movement, there is increasing austerity being offered. And it's across the board for small clubs as well as big clubs. So I guess this is where the value is being placed by the club, but those austerity measures are relevant to their own situation. For some of the comments said, we are increasing the frequency of payments to quarterly payments or 6 monthly payments. We've never done that before ever. There are other clubs that obviously have been doing that for years. So that's no austerity change for them because they were already doing that. But, each to their own. I guess, the majority of respondents, 60%, have indicated that they are doing something in addition to what they've normally always done. In the most common forms there were either increased payment plans or payment periods, being quarterly or 6 monthly as opposed to just once annual. Increasing top up to house credit accounts, house credits not expiring, and also any expiry period being extended. I've pointed out a few others there, which were, I guess, some more left field outcomes, or some left field decisions, or I guess left field is not the right term, but different decisions. Decisions there which are going to cost possibly in terms of absolute dollars. The refund for fees upon request for the period of closure. That club is, and I don't know who that club is, but they are going to work out a formula for that number. no house levy in the coming year. That's a quick way to have that levy discussion. Although I guess the club would certainly hope that the average spend would still be maintained by everybody. And then there was another club which was going to get quite creative in its formula and give credits based on time closed and then for costs incurred. So I guess the takeaway to this slide is that yes, austerity is being offered by at least 60% of clubs around the country.
Yeah, Jeff, there's some interesting ones we've seen up here. Are just hearing through the traps once again had to do with, if the club was closed like Victoria completely, I can see, is there going to be a member backlash, or most are doing the right thing and just supporting the clubs and trying to keep them going through tough times. So it's not like clubs haven't closed down before, maybe not to this extent, but most of the other states have had some kind of access. And it just seems like the membership, a portion of the membership, maybe just thinking that their membership dues are tied directly to their green fees, and that's it. When we know that the better clubs and true clubs are all about everything that's on offer. And I don't know if there's going to be any legal backlash with some. I've heard of some crazy members really pushing the envelope about that the equity of getting on, how often they've been able to get on, and so forth, which has been very different in different states and different timing. But,
yeah, I think what this will do is it'll flush out for you those who see the club just through their own eyes and through their own wants. Some GMs might say, well, that's all my members, but some will also say, yeah, there's the usual suspects who are going to push on these things. Look, hopefully sanity will prevail, and that the bigger story will be listened to, because and I'll touch on this a bit later, but loyalty is going to be a key factor going forward, and loyalty not just in decision to stay with the club, but also to continue to support the club via activity over the coming 12 months. When we got to around looking at member numbers, and I guess as this is where the rubber hits the road, it's yes, price is a factor, but revenue is about price times people, I guess there's a level of concern there with the GM base, who is the survey target, around where member numbers might play out. 9% average change across in nearly all the cohorts, and 3/4 of clubs expecting change to the negative. So look, let's hope that's a slide that doesn't come true. Obviously, within membership, there's category numbers, and there's, I didn't necessarily ask about full member equivalence, which is probably the better way to measure it. People will move category perhaps, and it will flush out at the end. But when we follow up this survey, possibly in 4 to 6 months' time, we might look to measure the change in FMEs over the period, because that's the one that really matters most. And I guess the one that picks up the consumer reality is that regardless of what they're doing around fees, even though there were decreases being offered, they didn't expect the decreases to be something that held membership. So this is when, the new world reality we have, this is when we get, that's the clash between my personal situation and then what I'd like to do with my discretionary income. My personal situation now could be as such that I just have to make different discretionary choices, and price is not something that's going to necessarily move something in terms of its level of priority in my personal spending. So I guess that's a wait and see, a watch and act. I know something that those of you who are going through renewals right now, I'm sure you're being asked questions about that regularly by your treasurer in terms of what's the renewal look like. You're probably asked to report on it regularly. Look, the industry will certainly be interested in how it all plays out, because we know the value of subscriptions to the P&L. We know the value of subscriptions to overall profitability, and this is, for many of you, the most important revenue line that you have. I guess as an extension of the member numbers, there will be movement. The question not necessarily as relevant to to those clubs which don't have a non-playing category, members can come and go as they choose each year without losing an entrance fee or without being subject to any member limits because the club is not at its limit. But I guess reflecting maybe the first step out is the move to non-playing to reduce the fee paid to accommodate their circumstances. And 1 in 4 clubs have said that they are seeing an increase in the category, which to me reaffirms those external drivers to the decision around the whole renewal decision that one has to make. I've always seen the non-member category the non-playing category is, for some it's an increasing risk if there's no cap on it. That said, you want to keep them as best you can, but it's a bit like for some clubs which still have the seniors categories. There's a liability there that can continue to grow, but most clubs said they just the normal conditions of entry were being applied, case by case consideration, or some had closed the category entirely. So each will do what they feel they need to do amongst their own cohort and that relate to their own circumstances. So from that, I guess ignoring for now the other pieces to the revenue pie, it's not just all about membership, but that was the focus of the survey. Not surprisingly, there's nearly everyone's in the 30% down boat. Some lucky clubs I've spoken to, one GM said to me the other day, Jeff, I'm making more money than I ever have because I don't have all the overhead that I would normally have to provide the service that I provide. They are the rarity, but nearly everybody's looking at some significant revenue impacts. Not all revenue flows to the bottom line. And I'll talk about profit shortly. Via the courtesy of Golf Australia, David Galicio shared with me this morning the year-to-date rounds numbers for the country. So year-to-date rounds, April down 17% over the year-to-date period in 2019. January and February were tracking pretty consistently with the prior year. And then we can see literally the overnight impact of the pandemic and the impact of different closure periods from around the country. 14% down in March, and then rounds literally fell off a cliff in April, down 48%. If we then look at that same data by state, we can see the impact then of what the different closure periods have had, and this is year-to-date data, so it probably hides to some degree the monthly impact of perhaps the delayed openings, say in Victoria. I know when I looked at Victoria, the rounds data for April was 99% down over April 2019. No surprise, given there was literally no golf. But we've seen there some states have obviously incurred some significant declines in rounds demand, and the point I wanted to make around that was, and this is competition golf, knowing that there is some element of social golf being provided now across all states, and some clubs are now back to playing competition golf as well. But the average margin on competition golf right now is, through our benchmarking data, shows that the average margin on the competition fee being 40%. So I did some numbers earlier, and if we look at the rounds, 600,000 comp rounds down year to date versus last year, that's about $1.5 million in margin that clubs have lost just in competition fee margin. So we can see how whilst it's not all about subscription revenue, there's also the margin piece on the competition fee. Then obviously the lack of public green fee or guest green fee element that I think is yet to be reinstated at most most facilities. So the competition fee is certainly a driver to, and I'm sure, as you all know, it's a driver to one of the determinants driving incomes down.
Hey Jeff, with those rounds, if you just showed a April versus April, I guess, or March to April, you would see the huge drop off, wouldn't you? Like you were saying, that's a year to date there. But that, say Victoria being 27% down, that theoretically could be just April.
Yeah,
that's an example.
Yeah, literally, it was for the state of Victoria for the month of April was 99%. It was 200,000 rounds normally down to like 2,000. So it's look, that door's now been unlocked. So at least there's play happening, which is I guess is going to be the glue to help enhance or help restate the member value. I know in listening to a couple of podcasts lately, the GMA podcast last week with Peter Bush from Green Acres and Mark Tan from Mount Osmond, Mark was saying that they're busier than ever golf-wise. Just literally golf on the golf course, then go home. They're seeing members they haven't seen for a long time because their members possibly don't have their other recreational activity available to them. But because it's all member golf, they're not making any money, but they're really busy. So, been
hearing the same thing. Even with twosomes, they're playing from 6:30 in the morning till dark. Teeing off at 3:30. The rounds are faster. There's a few courses that more the pay as you go type of model with their membership that have benefited. That they're getting a small green fee at least for every round, where the ones with none would going to be not getting that revenue in that to keep things going.
Yeah, I guess the point I want to make around that was, I guess revenue will flow once demand flows again. Just because the doors are open doesn't mean, and I'm this audience is going to be well aware of that. Revenues won't flow directly as courses reopen until the type of access changes again. So I've spoken about revenue, and then naturally that has an impact on profit. Some of those key lines literally all fall to the bottom. There's no variable cost attached to them, or little variable cost attached to them as they fall through. So there's only so much expense management that one can do initially to materially change the profit outcome. So as the top bar chart there shows, or the top bar of that chart shows, that 64% are going to be down by at least 20, and then more than 75% by at least 10%. So, and then there's a couple who are even suggesting that they'll make a little bit more money this year due to the timing of this and perhaps some of the nuances within their business model. But certainly, overall, the pandemic certainly is not going to make a 2020 year a number you'd want to use as one of your highlights. So as member numbers, there's a pressure there. There's pressure on pricing. There's pressure on revenue. Pressure on profit. Where this all falls out naturally is in capital spending, and not surprisingly, it's forecast to fall on average by more than half. Nearly 80% of clubs said there will be adjustments now to what they plan to do. A lot of it, whilst I didn't ask the question where it was going to be spent, some of the comments made at the end were, this was going to be machinery replacement or turnover things. We now have to stretch things out a bit further. Cart fleet replacement, some clubhouse works. It was all a bit of a mix. But with the capital spend cut in half, I looked at some other data before hopping onto this webinar, and through our benchmarking set, we've got operating profitability averages of about $450,000 a year as operating profit. If that's going to be cut in half to say 240 or thereabouts, then the difference there in the reduction, the cash position, can be salvaged by the reduction in the capital spend. So, that takes balance sheet capability. However, not everyone's got the balance sheet capability, but the capital spend was always going to be where the cut was able to be made if it hadn't been committed prior to the pandemic, or unless clubs couldn't get out of any commitment they'd made, or from a timing perspective. I'm sure there's lots of discussions happening around trying to push back some promises that had been made.
Well, I've had a few clubs have said they've been in a position to actually push ahead and take the opportunity while the clubhouses are shut down and there's no play, to get some capital works underway, renovation work, course reno works, heavy deep time work, just anything that they can get through while there's nobody out there. Actually, probably cheaper to do it when nobody's out there. So there's some positive there. Everybody's been pretty positive on taking a proactive approach while they have the time to do it. And thanks to JobKeeper, it's made it available for most clubs to be able to do so.
I think if anything, it's sped up some work. It's made it more. It's made it perhaps cheaper from a time element to do, because we can just get in. We don't have to be off. We can work in an uninterrupted environment. Although crews might be split in two, so there might be some efficiency questions there. But certainly those many did, and Mike, I've heard the same anecdotal stories. Is they've taken the bull by horns and literally said, right, let's crack into this now, so we can get this done and dusted, and get ahead of our plan from a maintenance perspective than what we may have previously been able to achieve, whether the golf course was still open or the club was still open. So these questions again, then I guess start pointing towards, well, what does the future look like? What direction? Where are we going to end up? I'm happy to conclude that the club industry is definitely a glass half full. Half full optimism. I know there's some GMs who said back in the comments that their views were a little bit more positive than some of the board members' views. I would tend to side with in the GM in that case, given they've probably got their finger on the pulse and they're a bit more closer to the coalface. But there is certainly, whilst there's cautiousness about the industry fully recovering, and I guess that's us all saying, well, I know my own backyard pretty well. I don't know others, but man, if others aren't good, well, then if they make a couple of bad decisions, then they could be vulnerable. And look, that's probably true. But we do know our own backyards better than everybody else. And there is confidence that clubs or the industry will recover. Now, the word recovery is an interesting one. What does recovery actually mean? I guess it's been interpreted as getting back to where we were. I put out a report last year that showed average club profitability at the EBITDA level averaging 9%. It's probably a couple of points south of where it needs to be. Probably needs to be closer to 15. So in terms of being able to fully fund your future capital needs and all your replacement requirements. So we might get back to that 9% number, but I'd still say that we've got to get it higher in order to make sure we have genuine sustainability, and not necessarily be vulnerable to something that could happen in the future that could cause disruption and then question our ability to come back from that action.
Yeah, Jeff, just a quick little poll I threw out there. There's just only one has said that they have started some kind of major cap work. 7 or 8 haven't or not. So it just might be the blend of our viewers today.
The famous man then once said, "Never waste a good crisis." It's funny looking back. You kind of think of Winston Churchill as was a really successful politician. I certainly know he had his critics, and he wasn't exactly Mr. Personality, but his this famous phrase is assigned to his wit and his judgment. So I kind of thought about that and wonder whether from this though comes opportunity. A GM once said to me here in Melbourne, he said, Jeff, unless you can frame a crisis to the membership and they understand the crisis, then you've got no hope of getting anything past them that is of any major consequence. So thinking about that and thinking also about what Winston Churchill said, from where I sit, in this case, what would normally be club communications, the news has done our job for us. Never have members been better informed about the world, its position, the country, the state, industries, businesses. You can't avoid the news right now, and I think we're all pretty informed about the impact of the pandemic. To me, I extend that and say, well, if they understand that, they've seen Virgin go into administration and Tiger Airlines has disappeared and they've seen unemployment at levels that they've never seen in their life and 5 million people on JobKeeper and concerned with possibly their own businesses or their own environment, by association and by extraction, I think they would never better understand, whether they know exactly or not, well, hey, this must be affecting the club. It has to. Either they might not know exactly, but they have to say, well, of course there must be a natural carry-on that must impact the golf club. Also, at the same time, for many of them, some less in some states than others, to be denied access to a golf course, for it to be closed, in Australia is just unheard of. And I know in other countries of the world, they might have 1 day a week maintenance day. I know that's common reality in the USA. But golf here is 365 days a year except for Christmas Day. So to be denied something that they have always assumed would be available whenever they wanted it, I'm getting the feeling, and this is just an anecdotal feeling, that there's an increased appreciation. I'm just thankful to be back here. I know Peter Bush said the other day on his podcast, he said, he got an email from a member that said, man, never will I take for granted driving in the driveway ever again. Look, let's hope that's not a short-term view, and sorry, though they have a short-term memory and they do have a long-term memory, but to me, the crisis has been well and truly framed. And they'll probably never be more likely to understand or accept maybe a new action or a new activity or trial that you want to make. I think now's the time to go hard and have a go at something that you think might be holding you back, that you possibly couldn't get approved or done in normal operations. But that said, it's horses for courses here, because what are some opportunities for some might not be for others. Some may already be well down that path. It might not be relevant. Some may deliver really material outcomes to some clubs, and the same change might not make much difference. I guess you've got to pick your fight, and pick the one that you think can achieve you the best outcome, with a view to sustainability, with a view to your operation, and a view to knowing your members as well. What some of those things might be. There will be inevitably, whilst we do hope the P&L bounces back, there's going to be pressure on revenues for a long time. Just the practicality of some of the revenue streams, particularly the non-member piece as well, the visitor piece, the corporate piece, the function piece, although functions aren't necessarily massive profit generators. you know, there's going to have to be adjustment within the P&L. And most GMs know that their biggest cost is labour. The cost of putting, you know, golf's a service-based industry, yet our biggest cost and the thing that holds us back from making money is the cost of service delivery. So is there opportunities within labour?
Yeah, Jeff, one that comes to mind, I've had a few managers say around just the raking of bunkers as an example, you know, with the no rakes and just leaving them sort of bare and people putting their foot over it. You know, it's the amount of labor you would do in bunker repair every morning.
Well, yeah,
you think,
okay,
well,
I think
you shouldn't be in there anyways, people say.
I think in that case, my members will have very short memories, and
Exactly
I'll say,
right.
yeah, well, that was fine back then, but now if I can pick up a rake at home, then I can pick up a rake here. So,
yeah.
But look, there will be areas. You know, one I can think of for one club might be, you know, do we do table service within the food and beverage offer these days? Is that a necessity within the P&L operations or the structure that we've now got? Is that what we have to do to deliver the value proposition? I think the value might be assessed in other ways, and there might be some space gifted back to the club to say, well, yeah, we understand you've got to do what you've got to do, and we know you will do whatever you can for us. The question around some of these decisions might be less questioned than they might normally have been. Cash handling is another one. Perfect time to go cash only. Everyone understands that now. I know there's a large cost to cash handling. It's probably a hidden cost of operation. I know it's a massive admin responsibility. I can remember my days behind bars and whatnot. You know, the daily float and the canning and all that admin purpose or the admin piece around that.
Even from a staff safety or security, if you're a high volume place at night, you know, you're less likely to get ripped off or burglared.
Yes. Tea time management, is it, you know, 2 teas, 1 tea? Is that our best way to go? What are the staffing requirements around that? Do we keep doing subsidised functions? Why have we done them? We've always done them. Well, but is this a chance to say, let's stop doing them for now because we can't afford the subsidy right now? Should F&B be loss making? Should it be more commercial? What is our policy around visitor tea times? Can we afford to be so strict? Perhaps do we have to loosen the belt a bit on that to grow the revenue base again? How important is it dress code? Is community more important now than dress code to a point? Is there some flexibility we can offer there? What are we doing without the family? Is this a chance to bring everyone closer whilst we've been pushed apart and segregated and socially distanced? You know, is the club, is that going to be the thing that brings us closer together? I guess there's the consumer's position. Is this a time that you've got to rework what you do, how you do it, presenting a more affordable product? If your product has become too expensive for enough people within your market to pay what you want them to pay, well, then you can't keep selling black cars. You're going to have to change the colour of the car. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, you know, at any particular facility I can point at or I can point to, but that's always a question you've got to be asking yourself. You know, have we become a little bit chubby in our operation? Many GMs are so, I am lean to the bone everywhere I look or everywhere I go. And I believe them. But with cost, or with people comes cost. With cost comes the need for a price point to be higher. Where we might get to, Mike, out of all of this is this a chance for the membership model to be reworked for some quickly? And it's a very difficult model to change because you have to find that transition period that satisfies most of the people most of the time. And when you turn it on or when you change it, you've got to be able to afford the change in case some of your assumptions didn't work out and there's a shortfall in what you thought you get in how you change the model. But I think this is probably a line in the sand of say, you know, we need to give this some serious consideration, because this is our chance to actually almost go under a bit of a transformation in who we are, how we work, how we
it's
send
very
ourselves to the
valid.
market.
Yeah, no, very valid. I'll just have one little comment, and then I got one of those possible curly ones for you, Jeff. I know you didn't want to drew from one of the viewers. But no, it is a good time, because that 1.5 meter distancing isn't going to go away anytime soon. That's going to be with us for a very long time. And I know some suppliers are looking at, cart suppliers, for example, just how to retrofit carts with dividers. You know, raking traps to online scorecards, and you know, just all those types of things that now are in place, and we've re-educated the market to some degree with new habits. So we don't have to necessarily go straight back to what we've always done, but you know, where you can squeeze in some change that you wanted to do, I think this is what you were touching on. You know, it's a perfect time while people are, you know, you can sort of cloak it under the COVID change.
And to me, it's a trial. It can be a permanent trial forever, but it's a trial, adjusting to the new way we have to be. And to me, that's how they get sold. It's trialing it, and we're seeing its impact on the operation. And you look at some results and make a decision with more information to hand. But nothing's permanent unless you want it to be. I guess. So, Mike.
Oh, sorry. I said there'll be some the legislation around COVID safe, and everybody coming on your property signing in. That whole space is going to have to be looked after in probably a digital standpoint, like going to an RSL club or a surf club. I mean, you typically need to sign in and rip that little piece of paper, or some of the places you just scan your license. But all those touch points. I got to stop using touch points in customer service, because it's been non-contact points with your guests. Got to change the terminology. Yeah, all that stuff, you know, needs to be looked at. You know, I think there's an opportunity for us to jump forward as an industry with a lot of the technology that a lot have held off on doing in the past, just out of cost or the culture of not wanting to change. Now they're forced into it. So I think we'll see a big shift forward, and we'll move forward in a lot of spaces that we're not aware of yet. It'll come into play over the coming months.
Yeah, which is why I think we've got, you know, a lot to learn from each other and a lot to share. And look, this is not about reinventing the wheel everywhere. It's about some things will just be efficient, and GMA has got a really important role to play here. GA's got a key role to play. The other state bodies, you know, Golf WA, Golf New South Wales, they've also got a key role to play to just help deliver outcomes which benefits which the industry benefit from. But to me, it's going to end up, you know, we're going to find out really about loyalty. Are you a club, you know, where people really want to be, or is it just a place where people go and play golf and leave?
Which is what it was before. You know, we always heard the issues of car park golfers.
That's fine if you've got a P&L or you've worked out a structure that works for that. But you know, it's probably hard to work, but it's you know, I think we're going to get a lot of learnings in this space over the next 6 months, and end of 2020 will be really interesting what the outcomes have been.
Yeah, watching some of the other major markets, the US market or Asia and England, we're all on different time frames, but we've all adopted. It was pretty good to see a positive impression of our industry taking charge and making the changes quickly, knowing that any one facility couldn't wreck it for the rest of them if they don't follow legislation like liquor licensing and so forth. We had an issue up here in Queensland with a member bringing some alcohol on and got caught by the licensing regulation, and the club could have got a major fine, and they would have got a major fine. Luckily, we got a slap on the wrist, and that would have hit the headlines, and that would have been, you know, disastrous. So we've all, from what I can see, from my viewpoint, we've all been doing the right thing to make sure the whole industry is doing well and being just that extra cautious. Yeah, so it's been good. And sitting in on the New Zealand calls, and if Des is still on or not, you know, that they've been very proactive as well. You know, they've had a slightly different timeline with shutdown for a month fully with no maintenance, and now they're opening back up and sort of catching up in some ways. So we have a lot of learnings from each other on best practice. Yeah. But the Curly question, I know we'll start wrapping up here, getting on 5 o'clock already, but do you think Golf Australia and golf in general have missed an opportunity to promote the game when it's been the only activity available to increase memberships of clubs? So, this is recorded, Jeff, so you know. Just a reminder. We'll take the more generic. Let's just look at the entire industry, not target one.
Yeah, look, in theory, again, certain states, in theory, probably. But what's theoretical is not always immediately practical or able to be executed in a way that would make a difference. Unfortunately, at about the same time, I think a week before the pandemic really struck in terms of severity, 7 had left GA, so they were without a CEO. They all were made to work remotely straight away. They were cost cutting because of the financial situation they'd got themselves into through the last couple of years. So if they weren't in that financial situation and they had a bit of, I guess, stability in terms of what they were doing and how they were doing it, I think you probably may have seen some things come out more quickly. I know they're doing some things right now, particularly through social media on the membership side, encouraging members to renew. That's internal communication to already probably existing people through connected golf channels. So yeah, look, in theory, I think yes, but I think there's circumstances around it that just prohibited, didn't allow it to happen in this time. But next time, I think, well, let's hope that there is no next time. But I think we will try and benefit from golf's position, particularly from a spatial awareness and just being able to get outdoors and live and breathe and enjoy the space that golf offers.
Yeah, I think we were stuck between the moral dilemma and the getting people the activity for people to get out. They sort of were converging messaging, a little bit of a sort of false start at the beginning, a little bit of a confused start, and then it seems like everything's gotten back in track now. I think better alignment, the information's coming out a lot better and clear. We're really following the states.
Yes.
But that moral dilemma, I know seeing on social media, a lot of people just stay home. Others are going, well, I'm employed. It's giving me a job. It's my members, need that outlet, even though they may be in the older age bracket, but at least they're getting out. It's their only thing that they get to do maybe all week. So from a mental standpoint, we were fortunate to be able to get some people out, but you still see that moral dilemma between the two.
Yes.
I think the one just came through from Gavin. Do you foresee governments using grant programs targeted at sport infrastructure as a post-crisis stimulus tool? Clubs should clubs be undertaking some preparation? It'll be on your chat line there.
Yeah, look, the governance, I don't think the industry can do enough governance. I kind of use governance as another word for education. It's just increasing awareness of how we all need to move in the same direction. I'm trying to see the exact question asked. But whilst there might be the opportunity available, there has to be a want to engage in it and a want to learn and a want to do it. One of our structural weaknesses is that the industry is very, and sometimes it's too democratic. We have turnover of people in governance positions far too frequently. The analogy I use is clubs get to first base, and the next year they go start again and go back to and swing and get back to first base again. They never really get around the bases. The better clubs do because they have good continuity and good planning, and they do get to execute. But many where they turn over annually, every year you're starting with a new group of people who you have to educate. So you never really get beyond the basics. Look, that's a question for another day, probably. But look, yeah, there's no doubt that the level of knowledge in the industry could be higher. But our structure, sometimes almost determines that it can't be because of the regular introduction of new people into the space.
Yeah, but another question, I think with that's I think your slides are at the summary of it, but one came in, it's slightly different, but would be around the driving, what's driving the cost increases in club membership year on year. This person viewed the 91 subs from a tier 2 Sandbelt club last night, and the cost was about $1,000 a year. Fast forward to 2020, it's greater than $5,000 a year. Adjusted for CPI, might be about $2,000. Some clubs in their mid subscription renewal periods are increasing their fee levels again, despite the impact of COVID. Assuming these increases are replicated in other markets, decline in membership, etc. What, if anything, can be done to make the subs more affordable? How can costs be removed out of the businesses? Well, we're seeing that under COVID-19, just out of necessity. Seems few of us are getting pay increases, though. Yet the subs continue to climb.
Yeah, look,
so I don't know if you have a general way to package that sub.
Well, I think, Mike, the issue many of us are facing is the current cost of renewal of old assets. You can put $8 million easily into a new clubhouse, and all it does is replace what you've got. It doesn't necessarily make you any more money. All it does replace what you got, because what you got is 30 or 40 years old. It's fully depreciated. The cost to do anything these days to replace any asset is it sometimes takes my breath away. That some of the costs are like, well, how can that cost that much money? But it just does. That's got to come from somewhere. And new things are being built to higher quality than they ever have been before, because there's often also requirements. There's statutory requirements, there's standards which have improved. There's access requirements. There's all this extra layer of statutory need to the capital assets which are being replaced. That's got to come from profit, and small amounts of profit, as in terms of dollar numbers, don't deliver you the material numbers you need to replace the big things. So, I'm on record as saying, the worst term invented in the world is the not-for-profit. No, you're not for tax. You actually for as much profit as you can make, because you need to be able to put it back into capital assets. Right. I think we are suffering now from a long-term view of, hey, we're not for profit. We need to be as cheap as we can. Let's just break even. Well, no. Not breaking even is only going to give you perhaps just your depreciation to spend every year, and that's not going to get the big things done. It's going to get the little, the carpet done and the paint done and the couple of machines. It's not going to get you the big things. The big things are the 1 in 5 year, 1 in 10, 1 in 20 year projects, and that's got to only come from operations. And if you're a member club, then that's largely going to come from subscriptions. So it's the whole product now is just a more expensive thing to maintain.
Yeah, I've seen that in many places over the years. Just no money going toward capex replacement in general, and clubhouses are deteriorating. But maybe all the money's being put in the golf course, and based on where the board wants to send it. Hey Jeff, I think we'll start wrap up this side of it. I think that was your last slide, but I'll be happy if you're able to stay on for a few minutes. Anyone any of the viewers, I can open the lines, and for the ones that maybe want to talk live with Jeff. And
there was a special prize, wasn't there, for those?
Oh, I forgot that. It's my first edition here. I'll have to come up and.
Wasn't there going to be a logo added to a logo board? Anyone who hung on was going to have their logo added to your sponsorship board, like football coaches do?
Might be it's a work in progress, and getting the background. background and all that sorted. So I love people's feedback over time as well, and what else we can do to make it better, more engaging, or what type of topics, what speakers, etc. We've got an open book to who we can talk to. But yeah, you happy to stay on for a little bit, Jeff?
Absolutely, yep. The kids have gone. I'm doing homeschooling at the moment, so they've just.
How's that going? You still got your hair, like me. But
I'm going 2020 without a haircut to a point.
Question just came in. Is it time for people only being able to gain a handicap from being a member of a golf club? I mean, is it time? I mean, it's not necessarily the case. We've got the virtual clubs out there and social clubs.
Is that coming from Simon Magdulski from Golf Australia in an anonymous way, I suspect?
Yeah. Andy Anonymous is his name.
Yeah. Anonymous, yeah, Simon Anonymous. So coincidentally, right now we have a study underway about the social/virtual club market and how it fits into the broader market. That study's been put on hold because of what's happening right now, but we hope to keep with it. We've done the social member piece, the virtual club member piece. We now have to go and get the club administrator piece in terms of their view. So can't really answer that one yet, but it's, I know, having written the Golf Australia 2019 participation report, the only part of the industry that's showing growth is through that sector. So
and there needs to be a clear definition between a virtual club and a social golf club. So I know a lot of social golf clubs where the virtual one is sort of the work around, the brick and mortar club as we're used to it. So even the terminology needs to be defined better.
Yes, I think for now
we have those types.
I think for now, everyone's revenue is going to be important. Everyone's wallet is going to be important.
So they all get lumped. They only get lumped into one. Yeah. Oh, I should take a screenshot. You just put it on there. If everyone wants to hang out for a couple minutes, I'll open it up. If the best way to do so, we're not all talking at the same time. You want to put Andrew Gay on the?
Yeah, if he's still there, I'd be thrilled to know that Mr. Gay is still around.
Wait, just see, it's not unmuting. There we go. No, it's not. Not allowing me to.
It's probably rushing home to make some more red wine. I know.
He might be on his own mute anyways.
He's probably selling it to the club at a high margin.
Damn, I was trying to hide.
Yeah, there it was. Yeah, I was trying to figure out why I couldn't get you on there.
Does that mean I've got to focus again now, does it?
or listen, Andrew.
No, I got some key takeaways. That's good.
Oh, there you go. Great.
I realised I didn't realise there was that much margin in golf ball comps, so maybe we need to.
I tell you, 40%, my friend, is where you should be at. So, but at $4, 40% is not very much money, right?
But when you charge $7 like we do, so it must add up.
Well, there you go. It does. It is. I hope you're showing it as a. You need to be showing it as an expense item in your golf operations.
Well, if it was my golf operations, I'd probably do that. Anyway.
Well,
not sure who's online, so.
that's a discussion for another day.
No, I thought it was a good presentation, Jeff. It was interesting. Your golf stats are just so far out of kilter. They're probably not really worth a great deal. I mean, in South Australia, we've been so busy.
Yes,
it's all social rounds. We're only just starting competition rounds next week. So we've been going since March through to now at 150 players a day with no competition rounds. So so our player numbers, like everybody else in South Australia, member rounds are up dramatically. So we're having 80 to 85% of our playing members play over a month period. So we're getting fantastic member engagement. As you said, making no money.
And that's
the members are happy. So
well, look, that's, I guess happy. You get the engagement first, and the profit membership. The profit comes later, right? Hopefully, because you've made yourself available. I'm sure the course is in great shape. They're happy. They've got to be happier than any Victorian they know. and a club like yours, but even if it wasn't like yours, but if it was was not of that high quality, but you still have the engagement, you'd have to think that's a positive impact to what the renewal prognosis might be.
There's certainly clubs that are going into renewal, either have just had renewals or about to go into renewals, are actually feeling a lot more confident because of their member uptake.
Yes.
So the members are happy, they're positive, they're playing golf. The chance of renewing are far higher than.
Yes.
I feel sorry for the ones in Victoria that may have had renewals and been closed at the same time. Would have been really difficult.
Well, because it adds up. It's 6 weeks more than a month. There's some tough decisions to be made, and probably some tough defenses of those decisions. That's the comms piece. They've got the broader market piece has been communicated well and truly. It's okay, how do I tailor that to me and look to the future and say, this is why we're doing this. Whilst having a finger on the pulse of how the members might react.
Hey, Gavin Lawrence, you there?
How are you, boys?
Hey, Gavin. What's the Queensland perspective?
I gave Jeff a rundown on that yesterday. We've been fortunate we've been able to trade the whole time as well. So I think that the challenge we've had has been a little different to everyone else as well. But look, I just think it's going to be around creating activity again, both in member and non-member segments. I think that's where our long-term challenge will be.
Pete Madison's just made a comment about recent rule changes and whatnot have increase the speed of play, no bunker race, etc. And look, that's all extremely positive. I just wonder how long a memory the member is prepared to have and go, well, yeah, it's fine for now, but let's get back to our 4-ball, and let's get back to rakes, and let's get back to proper competition golf. And can we hang on to this new, more relaxed golf for as long as we can? I'd be interested in any other GM here, Dave, Lullam, or Gav. What are your thoughts in terms of, do you try and hang on to social golf or more social golf than reverting back to the old way, the competition orientation?
Hey, Tim Gahan, are you on there? Just unmute if you want to say a few words.
Yes, Mike, I'm here.
Yeah, Tim. We're putting you on the spot. This is just an open discussion. So, what's your views from the New South Wales standpoint?
Well, it's certainly been interesting. I think from our perspective, we initially took steps quite slowly. We shut down for a couple of days initially, certainly when New South Wales said we were to shut, and then we reopened quite quickly again. We didn't do much in food and beverage to start off with. We just, because it was changing on such a day-to-day basis, and it was difficult to ramp up and down as things changed. But for the last 3 weeks, we've had the drinks cart out there. We've come in and grab a coffee and go, and a few other bits and pieces. So there's been a sort of sense of normality here for the last few weeks to a degree. Obviously, everyone's going back to 4-balls probably from tomorrow, so that's going to be the true test. We've got 250 people here on the weekend on Sunday alone, so God knows what that's going to be like, trying to maintain some sort of social distancing with all that happening. So that's going to be the challenge over the next couple of days, just trying to manage what we've had over the last few weeks and months in terms of very orderly procession of people through the golf club to having 250 here on the day as opposed to the 140, 50 that we've had over the last few weeks. So that's going to be interesting in the next challenge.
Tim, do you think given the reason, I hate talking about bunkers, but let's talk about them. Do you think because there is physically no rakes that this is now entirely on the membership guys? You guys have to look after each other. Are they doing a good job of it? And is it something you think they'd continue to do given they've almost learned a new skill?
No.
Okay.
No, I'll go back to the rakes and complaining about the bunkers as soon as they possibly can.
What a shame. Okay. So that's going to be a very short-term memory. And so to Pete Madison's comment about it's been enjoyable for now. Well, I think it sounds like it's just going to be for now, and form will revert in that area when it can. I guess when you're out, which I guess is when you put the rakes back in.
Much to the core super's chagrin, no doubt.
Oh, I have no doubt.
I don't think it's. I mean, it'll be based on the law of what we, those touch points. Pat on here asked a question about, are you considering using technology to provide contactless golf? So I guess when it comes to sand buckets, ball washers, breaks, all those types of things that are communal use, do we see those even coming back? Are they even going to be allowed to come back? Or are members going to be carrying their own buckets and their own little rake? I think that might be a good little business thing there for us, Jeff. Those little rakes that go on your clubs.
I think the Sports Turf Managers Association is lobbying the industry or lobbying the government to say, please ban rakes and forever. I think that's. I think I've heard that. In fact, if they're not, then I'm sure they might think about it. Yeah, well,
we don't have to take the pin out anymore, but you do have to touch the pin. Are we going to keep the styrofoam, snakes in there? And is that what kind of impact does that even have on your score?
Is Terry Muir still there?
Yes, he is.
Terry, you've obviously got some interesting insights from the coalface in terms of the maintenance side, and that is touch points everywhere. Is there increased cost now in just being so touch averse that will have to be considered?
Yeah, look, I think so. Mike sort of hit the nail on the head a little bit earlier when he said there's going to have to be some increased vigilance about people touching surfaces, touching each other. We've created this thing called a SAO, a Safe Act Observation, for the superintendent to just monitor the golfers and to see that they're observing social distancing. It's a 20-point checklist, and randomly they do that for the golfers, but randomly they do it also for their staff to make sure that they're doing the right thing. So yeah, there is a little bit of extra time, but the inspection shouldn't take them any more than 10 or 15 minutes. So yeah, they need to do this sort of thing. And the other thing that a lot of them are doing at the moment is this risk assessment. Are we COVID ready? So we're spending about an hour with the club. So that's another hour of their time, but it at least gives them a score on their current COVID capacity. So, but I can tell you now, the supers do love the fact that there's no rakes, no pins, and that sort of thing.
Yes, I heard that Gavin at Capera's not cutting holes in the practice green. I mean, even that sounds so simple, yet there's a time-saving element to that. The cutting and the changing and to hit towards something. There's something in that is they're the little excesses that have crept into operations that I think can quickly be removed, and we understand why, and perhaps I'll never come back. And half an hour here, half an hour there is going to is what it's going to be all about.
Without a doubt, COVID's obviously introduced some extra tasks, but it's also eliminated quite a few. So I think overall there's some efficiency savings at the moment. Yeah. But as Tim said, we know what the golfers will expect in the not too distant future. 2020 turnaround.
2021 maybe. And that's awesome.
and well, I was talking to Mike earlier today. We expect that the regulators are going to burden the industry even further to demonstrate that they are doing the right thing. So there's going to be some resources chewed up having to do that too.
Do you think it's going to be too much for some people?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It can be made simple. Regulators have been pretty good. They haven't been overzealous or looking to place some onerous tasks on a superintendent, but trying to get people to do new things, there's always going to be pushback. But if it's taking too much time, too much effort, they're doing too much.
Yeah.
Or if it is going to take extra time, it's going to have to give somewhere else, or costs are going to have to go up with more payroll hours. I got Peter Madison has a question. Either Peter?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, Pete.
Great.
Hi, Pete.
Just going back to your discussion point, Jeff, about clubs having to think a little bit outside the box and use this period to sort of reassess things the way they're doing things. One thing we've really noticed has been the ease of clubs accepting new ideas in this period.
Yeah.
And it's been things that we would struggle to convince clubs to do or take on or change processes.
Yeah.
Now they're all jumping on them.
Can you give me an example?
Reasons, but the thing is that they've really surprised themselves about some of the things that have been put through now and changes have been made. They're going, wow, this is fantastic. We're going to keep this we're going to do this after COVID now. But
yes,
prior to that, there's always been a struggle, not so much of every club, but it's always been a struggle to convince clubs to move forward, to bring new innovations in, and they've had trouble convincing, their boards and so forth. But I think clubs could learn a lot from this period.
Yeah, well, whilst I'm sure, Churchill said that phrase, don't waste a good crisis. So I'm sure he said that with with genuine intent, and we're not trying to do anything slippery or backhanded, but you got to make hay while the sun shines, and right now there's probably an opportunity to do some things and push some things through more quickly for collectively good reasons.
Yeah.
Which you or I or Mike or everyone else might know is, hey guys, you'd really benefit from this. If they're more willing to trial it, then that's a good.
Yes. I'm not talking so much about commercial things and selling things. I'm talking more about functionality that's already been there, or
yes, right.
Different ways of looking at things. Because so I'm not really looking at commercial aspects of it, but just things that have been learned from other clubs.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think the Eagles and Fremantle will have to relocate to the Gold Coast, or we just ban them from the competition this year?
Well, I'll probably try and ban them, given that they wouldn't let them train. Given that they wouldn't let them train in tens when we could train in tens. They were a bit worried about that. So that's the VFL.
See, Mike, you throw out a hook to Pete and he takes it for the Eagles.
Every time. I think I've heard other ones before. Hey, Ross Morrow. Sorry, Ross Morrow, I think you were trying to jump in at some point. I don't know if that's still the case.
No, I'm right, thanks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I might have just picked up some background noise. No worries. I think there's nothing else to go through. Jeff, any parting?
Look, Mike, I've spoken enough. I think people have heard enough from me today. But look, it's been a real treat to be able to connect with everybody and share some thinking and I think as I said at the beginning, we're all in this together, and which is a statement I'm sick of hearing. But in this case, there is a lot we can learn, and the more of this, the better. I think for the foreseeable future, because it's going to be little things along the way that just help each other out. And as I've always said, reference points to decision making really help inform the decisions that are made. So, we'll get better with the data collection. The point Andrew Gay made around, social rounds being, going through the roof. And, not only in South Australia, but probably in every other state that had some, other than Victoria, which was fully closed. We'll get into that detail, but as you rightly said, we're really busy. We're not making any money. So I guess, as I said, though, satisfaction first, then hopefully profit and sustainability second.
Yeah, no, I definitely think we'll come through it a lot stronger, for the ones that have taken the proactive approach with what we can do in very tough times. I thank Daniel once again from Golf Business Australia just for his support with GICTV. I've got your emails now, so I'm starting a new database, and I'll keep you in touch with some of the upcoming webinars and education pieces, and even just general chats Yeah, just to share the information. That's where the strength is. That's what I've always believed in. You know, is if we share and not segregate each other, but let's help each other out. We'll, as an industry, we're going to come out a lot stronger. But no, thanks for that. For the ones that want a recording to share with your board members or anybody else, that'll be loaded up tomorrow, and you'll get an email with the link. So please share it as far and wide as you want. You know, that's great. And send me any feedback and anything else that any topics you may want to talk about, or any certain speakers. I think having any group conference things this coming year is going to be a real challenge to get 100 or 200 or more of us in a room or in a big room. So this may be our platform for the near future, as we know, and it's getting busier and busier. It's a busy highway, so I don't want to overload you with too much because there's too many on, but I'd love to make it so it's something you look forward to.
Great, thanks, Mike.
No, thanks again, Jeff, and your contact details are on your slide. So if you do need to get a hold of Jeff, and that's it. So we'll sign off. Thanks again, everyone, and yeah, we'll hopefully see you on the course at some time. Take care.
Thanks, Mike.
Cheers, Jeff.